Hello everyone, I'm Cecilia. I'm an exchange student from Chile, and today with FuseTV we're going to be talking to Charlie Roberts, our current Activities and Culture Officer of the Students' Union here at the University of Manchester. How are you today, Charlie?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah.
Good. So, Charlie, to start off, could you outline your role to us, explain your main responsibilities and how you're going to work this year to support the students?
Yeah, so my role is called Activities and Culture Officer, as you mentioned. So my remit is societies, student groups and international students. But that's within the wider officer team, and we all have different remits that support different sections of student life. My day-to-day supporting students looks really different every day, but sometimes it can be specific sort of almost like casework, one-to-one supporting certain students with things that they're experiencing or things that they want to make happen. It can be supporting student groups that I have a lot of, within my role there's a lot of specific jobs that I have to do to keep the running of societies and the Students' Union working, so whether that's helping to approve new societies when they get put forward, or responding to appeals when societies aren't able to form, and that sort of stuff. And then I also do a few different other things. So I spend a lot of time lobbying local government and central government, and also the university to make changes that students want to see. And then I also work on special projects like a live festival and things like that, which involve lots and lots of students and helping them do something.
Great, we're going to be talking about all of that later. Charlie, what do you want to do with the role this year?
There's obviously loads I want to do with the role this year. Yeah, so I want to make sure that the student voice is heard in every single room I can get into, whether that's rooms with MPs or rooms with the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, who I was with yesterday, or just in all of the university spaces I get to be in, committees and boards and things like that. And then also within the union, making sure that the staff members of the union aren't too removed from students, and we can make sure that student voice is heard in every single thing the union is doing as well. And then the other thing, because of the specific remit of my role, I get to help students create amazing communities, and I really want to help students to make those communities as strong as possible and resilient as possible, so that they can be really supportive and impactful in everything that they are doing, whether that's campaigns or just running a society or anything in between and outside of that.
Okay, on your idea statement you talk about increasing the power of the students in their student union. Could you explain how you will work to do this?
Yeah, so one thing that we've been working on is officer surgeries, so we're hopefully going to be able to set those up soon, but we want to make sure that they work in a way that actually means that students feel like they can attend them and they can talk to us about things. And I think as a team, we've already been doing that a lot this year, just putting a concerted effort into making sure that students know that they can come to us and talk to us or message us on our various social media or email, make sure that they can, that they know that they can do that, make ourselves as accessible to students as possible, because I think our power needs to be the power that students have, not just kept for ourselves, because we're lucky enough to get to be in all of these spaces within the uni and be able to hold the uni to account on the things that they say they're going to do and the things that they're not doing. But there's no point in us being in those spaces if we're not speaking to students every single day. So that's the big thing with transparency, I think, is just us making sure that we're speaking to students as much as possible, and not letting ourselves get removed from the student community in any way, because at the end of the day we were all students 3 months ago.
So Charlie, do you think that the students here at the University of Manchester are not involved enough in their student union today?
I think that we could always get more students involved, but it's not always going to be the place for everyone. I would really like it to be, and that's definitely in an ideal world what I'm working towards is for the Students' Union to have something for everyone, but I'm sure that there are people currently who don't feel that it has something for them, and so and that is okay. but we just need to keep working towards that not being the case. I think the students that are engaged in the Students' Union currently we've got so many students that are really, really brilliantly engaged, and they love being in the building, and they love doing stuff with the union, and they do so many amazing things. And they also put on things for students that are less engaged to attend, which I don't think that those students often realise that they're actually like leading in a way. You know, if the chair of Taylor Swift Society is leading a friendship bracelet making event, then I don't know if they realise that that is like an amazing piece of leadership that they're doing there for all of their fellow students to get engaged with the Students' Union. And so that's something that I really want to focus on, is like making sure those people know that they're in these amazing positions and they're doing amazing work. Yeah.
And following that same idea, you've said to the Mancunian that you believe that combining arts with politics, and I quote, is the best way to build community and make people want to get involved. Could you outline how you've seen this approach reflected on your work throughout the year so far, and how do you see continuing in the future?
Yeah, so so I said that at the Picnic and Pickets event, which is something that I've been doing for a couple of years now with some other students, and mainly like the Tenants Union Society, where we put on music and we do some like crafty stuff, and we put on poetry and speeches at Plattfields Market Garden in Fallowfield, and we get people down to either donate to a cause or just to hear a bit more about a cause that we're working on at the moment. So this most recent one was to do with something called Block the Block. But yeah, I think it's such a good way to bring people into a room is putting on music, especially in Manchester where music is such a big part of the culture. And yeah, and then when you get the people in the room, that's when you can talk to them about what you want them to know, and I think it really brings people together. You know, if you have a common interest already in something like music, then you can meet people who also have an interest in the political stuff as well. So yeah, the other big thing that where we started to do that is a live festival. So I helped run a live festival as a student as well, and I got to do my first live festival in this role a couple of weeks ago, and it went really, really well. And one of the stages at a live festival, so it's ostensibly a music festival. There's 5 stages, they all have music on them, but one of the stages is really dedicated to like poetry and spoken word and comedy, and also speeches from some of the great student societies like and campaign groups like the Tenants Union. And yeah, that's a space again where we can bring people together around music or around the arts, and then they can also learn about some of the other great stuff that's happening on campus.
Good. So now moving on to international students. On your idea statement, you talked about addressing the hostile environment on campus for international students. Why would you describe the environment for these students as hostile, and how do you plan to tackle it?
Yeah, so that piece of my idea statement really came from something that happened last year around Tier 4 visas. So at the time, international students were having to check in on campus in order to retain their access to their Tier 4 visas, and it was, I found, hugely unfair, and I think a lot of international students felt like they were being singled out, and like they had to put all of this effort into something that home students just don't have to do. And so when I came into the job, there was already something being put in place, the seats program, which monitors attendance, and so that was far enough along when I came into the job that there weren't massive changes I could make to it, but that just meant that I really have to scrutinise it. And so that's what I'm doing at the moment, is I'm really making sure that I'm keeping an eye on that programme and that it's not being unfair to international students, and adding to to any hostile feelings on campus towards them, because yeah, I know, yeah.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about, the fair and non-invasive Tier 4 visa check program, and also the project that is about setting aside a pot of funding that can be applied for to make cultural events. How are those projects going so far?
Yeah, so the Tier 4 visa program thing, I suppose I've already spoken about really, but yeah, I think again it's just about scrutinising what we've got currently and making sure that if big changes do need to be made, they're made in time, and I'm going to the right people within the university to make those changes happen if they need to be made. On the funding thing, I think we haven't got to the point where we've sort of like put a piece of funding aside for that yet, but I have been changing the way that funding works to make it fairer, to put in place some of the groundwork for that type of work. So I've been trying to make sure that as many students as possible know about the funding that exists, because there are a few different grants within the union that aren't always applied for as much as things like Fund It. And then with things like Fund It, so that's the society funding program where societies apply for funding and it's allocated to them, but it always, obviously, more than we are able to give out gets applied for. So I recently input a student panel who sit whenever a funding application period closes. They sit down and they look through all of the applications and they decide which applications will be fully funded or partially funded or not funded at all, based on some criteria which are, I mean, they're on the website, so go and look there. But they're things like how would this application or this event that they're asking for money for feed into their society's unique aims and things like that. So and having that student panel able to scrutinise that will hopefully mean that it's a much more democratic process, and students feel that that money is being used in a transparent way.
Where did this idea of changing the existing funding came from?
Yeah, so it very much came from my time as a student leader. So I was on various committees and in lots of societies when I was a student, and Fund It changed a lot while I was a student. It worked a number of different ways. Some of those ways were first come, first served. Towards the end, it was a panel of staff in the union who were deciding it. And I just, at the time, remember feeling like it was really unfair. And also really untransparent. I didn't feel like I understood how it was being decided, and I felt like first come, first serve was really unfair, because it meant that if you worked harder on your application, you were actually less likely to get the funding and things like that. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there were as many students involved in the process as possible, because when I was a student I didn't feel like I could get involved in that process.
Okay, so you've already explained a little bit of both of the systems, so why do you think this one, the new one, is better?
Yeah, so I think it's better because, as I said, like, students are able to, a small group of students, the panel, are able to see exactly how it happens and make the decisions. Also I should say, the panel are, we ask society committees to, like, their committee members to say when they're going to be free for the panel, and sort of not apply, but like put their name down for being willing to be in the draw.
Okay.
And then we use a random number generator to randomly select one committee member from a society within each group of societies, so like arts and media and culture and faith and things like that, so that we try and get the breadth, but also keep it as random as possible, so that we've got as much of a representative idea of society leaders as possible in the room. So yeah, I think that's a much more representative and democratic way of doing it, really, and it means that students can see exactly what's happening. They can feed back to their friends exactly what's happening behind the scenes of those sort of decision-making processes. So yeah, I think that's why I think it's better.
Good. And comparing this year to last year, like this time of the year,
Mm-hmm.
do you notice any improvements on the accessibility of funding societies?
Yeah, I think I don't know the stats, to be honest, but
how have you like seen it? Like,
Yeah.
not like numbers, just like how do you think is
I think we
improved?
managed to I think like from a like transparency point of view, it's really improved. I think students know what's happening with the money now, and they know how to apply for it. They know when the periods of application are, and they know who's deciding. Well, not down to the name of the person, but they know that there's a panel of students getting to decide, and I think that really helps people to trust what's happening behind the scenes a lot more. And then I also think that we've been able to fund some really brilliant society initiatives and events this time around, and make sure that we get what's happening in those out there, you know, via the SU social media and things like that. We did do a small Fund It round for freshers this year, which I think worked really well, where we encouraged people to apply for to run things that would be accessible to everyone, preferably free, preferably, you know, you don't have to be a member of a society to attend them. And it was a smaller amount of money, but you had to use it within freshers. And that was a really great thing, because it meant that we could get some of that funding out before the term started, so that societies that, you know, didn't currently have any money in the bank account could properly plan some great freshers events. So yeah, I think there's a few different ways that it's worked better than previous years so far, but I'm excited to see what happens for the rest of the year with us giving out the rest of the Fund It money, and how that works for everyone, and what great stuff the societies do with it.
Perfect. And now to close the interview, Charlie, I wanted to know, what has been your favorite activity that you've done so far during this year? I would dare to say it's maybe a life fest, because you've mentioned it a few times during the interview, but I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah, it feels like a life fest is cheating a little bit. But I don't think I can choose a favourite, honestly. I think I just love, like the day-to-day, like walking through the Students' Union and seeing like a dance practice going on, and coming into the podcast studio and people just like messing around and listening to the radio that's happening in the other room, or, you know, seeing people stand on a table and do a speech in the Hive. That was pretty fun. Or like just all the different stuff happening on campus at the same time, I think is my favourite sort of activity. Sorry, that's a bit of a cop-out because I haven't given a specific, but yeah, I love it all. I think it's brilliant. Like, as long as students are running something and getting to do what they want to do, and as many students as possible are able to be a part of it, then that's what matters to me.
Okay, and what can we expect for the future on this like activity area?
Yeah, so what's coming up? Let me think. I mean, there'll be loads of really great activities around Christmas. I'm sure various Christmas balls and things like that, so definitely join those societies in time to do those sorts of things. And then refreshers is a really great time to join societies as well. You can make a start on something that you meant to start in September and didn't get round to, or whatever. And then we'll be gearing up for the next Alive Festival and the next Picnic and Picket after that, so watch out on our various social medias to make sure that you can get involved with those if you want to. You know, you can run a student festival in your first year, which is attended by up to 1,000 people. Like, it's a really cool thing to get to do. So yeah, there'll be loads of great stuff to come.
Thank you, Charlie, for your time and for coming here today. And thanks for watching this interview to Charlie Roberts, Activities and Culture Officer of the Students' Union.
Thank you. Thanks, Cecilia.